In this video, I'll show you why a Wi-Fi connection has become Islam's ultimate kryptonite. Now, you may think, surely that's not true.
Can you guess why? Can you guess why?
She told me stay strong and I asked what's that. I ain't never been nothing, that's why the kid rap. She told me stay up and I told her that's facts. I told her that's facts. I told her that's facts. That's facts. I ain't never let them break my spirit.
Sometimes I just get really frustrated nowadays about how truly retarded not just the American people have gotten, but just Westerners in general. Because there are so many really important things that have happened throughout history that concern each and every one of us, that most people just turn a blind eye to, or actively fighting in, in support of. You can call me Islamophobic, but a phobia is a irrational fear. It is not irrational to fear something that has been the catalyst to constant world conquering for 1400 years. After Muhammad died in the 7th century, all of his followers continued what he himself did, which is take over the majority of Europe. Almost every single Middle Eastern country that is in like a Muslim country used to be a Christian country. And if you think it's from what's it called, preaching the good word of Islam, that's not what it is. It was by the sword. And there's a reason why there's just mass coming into the United States and Europe as well. I mean, they have a reason, and their imams and sheikhs say it themselves, which is kind of a 100-year plan. Thing about Muslims and people who follow Islam is that they're very good about thinking about their children and their children's children and the future of their civilization. And the problem with us Westerners is we have a problem thinking in front of our noses. Just ridiculous. I would say a good 95% of the Western world is going to get just knocked out when, if it ever comes to a point where Islamics reach critical mass. Because if you are aware of the surahs or the hadiths, which are historical objects written about and from Muhammad, as well as the Quran, you know that the point of Islam and their idea of Armageddon and bringing about the end times is they have to kill every single Jew, and also convert every Christian. I'm not even going to bother you with that right now, but we're going to watch Cyberpunk Dingo. This is a man who is Australian, I believe, and he wears a cool mask. And he wears a mask because he is an apostate. An apostate is someone who left Islam. And the thing about being an apostate of Islam, it's nothing like Christianity, because I could tell my parents when I was younger, I'm not a Christian. And they most likely are not going to want to execute me for it or violently punish me. That's not the same in the Muslim world. Generally speaking, when people convert religions, they actually also have to leave their family, their friends, their community, and sometimes go in hiding. Whatever. You can call me a racist, but you can't call me dumb or stupid or wrong. Like, share, and subscribe. This is Unlikely Christian doing things. This is Sparky Speaks. Gang, gang, gang.
But here I am, an ex-Muslim who found freedom, bacon, beer, and existential crises thanks to the internet. Turns out, it's not the devil who's the biggest villain in Islam's story, it's your phone. In this video, I'll show you why a Wi-Fi connection has become Islam's ultimate kryptonite. Now, you may think, surely that's not true.
Can you guess why? Can you guess why? The thing that will take out the scourge is access to phones. Can you guess? If you can guess, I'll give you a prize. Your prize is you're not a stupid jackass, if you know it. Because it's pretty obvious.
But what the internet is doing to Islam today has actually happened before. Let me take you back to the 15th century, Europe to be exact. A German dude named Johannes Gutenberg invents the printing press. Suddenly, priests lose their monopoly on the Bible. For centuries, the church controlled access, interpreting scripture in Latin, essentially gatekeeping salvation. The printing press changed all that. The Bible was translated into local languages, and ordinary people could read it for the first time. And what did they find? Contradictions, corruption, and rules that didn't quite align with the church's teachings. Enter Martin Luther, a monk and theologian who wasn't thrilled with the church selling indulgences. Basically, a get-out-of-hell card for a fee. His 95 Theses called out this corruption, arguing that salvation came through faith, not cash. With the printing press, his idea...
Is it me, or does I know that I have it going fast, but is it me, or does he go really fast? I don't know.
Is spread like wildfire across Europe, making the church's control over religious thought impossible to maintain. The result? The Protestant Reformation, a tidal wave of new denominations. Reformation was not an option. In fact, a cornerstone of Islamic teachings is to keep the faithful in line. The Quran itself was apostasy, leaving Islam.
Perfect.
And an Islam...
I'll teach you about Christianity as I learn about it. I'm a Christian, but obviously I'm not an expert or a scholar. Look at me. I'm a ruffian.
Moses parting the sea were lifted with slight edits to fit the Arabian narrative. But unlike Christianity, which had centuries to adapt to modernity and face challenges like the Enlightenment, Islam has largely avoided that reckoning. Through empires, caliphates, and strict clerical control, it maintained a tighter grip on interpretation and authority.
Yeah, that's actually a very big reason why Islam is so different than Christianity, and you can't even really see them at the same level, is that as Christians generally, we want our kids and our people at our churches and just other followers to study the Word of God, which is translated in the Bible. And the Bible is a lot of different, there's poetry in the Bible, there's historical, document, things like that. But the Bible really checks out through a lot of scrutiny. The difference between that is the Quran was written by people, I think it was a couple hundred years after Muhammad, and the so-called revelations Muhammad got from Allah, he gave it to his followers, and his followers passed it down to the ones that they didn't get rid of, because since Islam, they've always like, I'm the true Islam, and they've been killing each other. But the thing is that in Islam, the actual text and meaning of it is protected by the imams, sheikhs, their leaders, because it falls apart through scrutiny. That's why most young Islamics are like, we know the Quran back and forward, but it doesn't matter where they're from. They know it in classical Arabic, even if they don't know Arabic. So it's like, I know the Quran. It's like, you know how to say it in Arabic, but it's like, I know how to sing the song Despacito, and I don't know what I don't know what it means, but I can recite it. That's the difference, right? Right? Despacito, I really want that pinche chiquito. Is that racist? Am I racist? Yeah.
This tight grip also involved enforcing the faith by any means necessary. Take the apostate wars after Muhammad's death. When several tribes decided they were done with Islam following his death, Abu Bakr...
I was just talking to you. The apostate wars. Ding, ding, ding.
The first caliph, launched brutal campaigns to bring them back into the fold. Their crime? Apostasy, leaving Islam. And in Islam, despite what lefties may tell you, leaving isn't a personal choice. It's seen as a crime that gets the capital punishment. This harsh stance wasn't a bug in the system. It was a feature, a way to ensure Islam's survival by stamping out dissent early on. The concept of religious innovation only reinforced this rigidity. Any deviation from the pure teachings of Islam as practiced by Muhammad and his companions was labeled heresy. In other words, questioning or adapting the faith to new circumstances wasn't just frownable. It could get you killed.
And that's why bringing Islam en masse into America is not the same thing, because they've held on to this. The reason why we've been able to be close to taking over in the UK with the grooming gangs and all the grape that goes on over there, all that stuff. The reason why we've been like that's happened to us is because as Western Christians, we believe in free will and we want to give as much freedom as possible for people to be able to create and live their own lives. That's the opposite of Islam. Islam is puritanical to the max and also authoritarian to the very level. So ultimately, just know that the reason why they're starting to be the majority of the people in your city or town and your teenage daughter or niece went missing, it's because of a culture that is lesser than ours, just for a fact. Just factually.
Nation was not an option. In fact, a cornerstone of Islamic teachings is to keep the faithful in line. The Quran itself warns believers about probing too deeply. In the Quran, it says, "O you who have believed, do not ask about things which, if they're shown to you, will distress you." Translation, don't ask questions you might not like the answers to. This was meant to discourage curiosity and critical thinking. Muhammad himself reinforced this in Hadith, famously saying, "The greatest sinners among the Muslims are those who ask too many questions." In other words, blind faith.
The greatest sinners among the followers are those who ask too many questions. Does that sound like the kind of religion you want your kids and wife living under? That sounds fun. That sounds like a fun thing to happen. You know what? Like, all I know is that over the last 100 years or so, looking at the Middle East, they're pretty awesome. Tucker Carlson says it is. He seems to think Qatar and stuff is way better. There are good places like Riyadh and all that stuff, but I would say that if you look at the Middle East, like you take a good look at Afghanistan, the Sudan, you look at North Africa, all the places that Islam has infected. Not that Islam is a disease or anything. You're gonna find a lot of sexual assault.
Good. Critical thinking. Bad. Why? Because too many questions threaten to expose cracks in the system. This obsessive control over beliefs and practice worked for centuries, allowing Islam to expand and maintain uniformity across vast empires. But here's the catch. When a belief system suppresses change and critical thought, it becomes brittle. And for centuries, there really was no system to encourage dissent or provide a place where dissenters could talk to each other. But then came the internet, where no question is off limits. I think this part works best if I start with an anecdote. The internet played a huge role in my journey away from Islam. In the country where I was born, apostasy wasn't just punishable by death, it stripped you of your statehood. Even so, I was always curious about science and history as a child. Despite growing up in a deeply religious household, I was captivated by the origins of the universe, the evolution of life, the rise of civilizations, and the great inventors who sparked the Industrial Revolution. I coped by convincing myself that Islam didn't contradict modern science. Our teachers constantly drilled it into us. Islam and science were perfectly aligned. That illusion held until the days of MSN Messenger, when I met an ex-Muslim. I couldn't believe this person was real. How could anyone leave the truth? Did he not fear eternal damnation? But, as you do on the internet, we debated for days. Days turned into weeks and weeks into months, and slowly, the facade began to crumble.
Yeah, I'm trying to look for a Nux video. I hope you don't cancel me for looking for a Nux video, but yeah, this is about, I'm just going to spoil it for you. Please go watch Cyberpunk Dingo. Of course. There'll be a link in the description if I remember. I'm new to this. But really, the reason why it seems like apostasy, which means people leaving Islam, is like Islam is going to end regardless of how much it seems like they're taking over, is because of the access to knowledge, social media. Because as a kid, if you were born in the United States and your parents are Muslim, I'm going to guess that your upbringing is fairly difficult and dysfunctional, which everybody's is. But, a lot of, your mom, if your mom's a niqabi wearer, that kind of stuff, you have that be your life. But then you have the kids that at school or that you see outside, and what you see on TV and then accessing knowledge of the Quran and the surahs that expose Muhammad as being a creep, as well as a mass murderer. And and then you compare the two ideologies when it's like, oh, check it out, like Starbucks, Nikes on my feet, freaking a cell phone in my hand, I got an EBT card in my pocket, and I'm buying Twizzlers and that kind of stuff, or putting a burqa on, praying 5 times a day, and religious jihad where you have to kill the kafir, which is the unbeliever. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, I feel like cognitive dissonance has a lot to do with people actually doing freaking terrorist attacks. You know what I mean?
Started discovering more free thinkers